Hi everyone, welcome back to the Lufian channel. If you've ever felt stuck or overwhelmed by life's issues, this episode is for you. I'm thrilled to introduce Maria Shenkman, a leading therapist and problem-solving expert. We are diving into powerful strategies that can help you transform your approach to life's toughest issues. Maria Shenkman has helped countless people transform their struggles into their strengths, and today she's going to share her secrets on how to become more effective and coming up with problem solutions.
So I kind of have to do that by the nature of my work. People come with problems mostly to therapy, of course, and just as a human being, I've always was of a mindset where you need to find options. Can't just get stuck and stay in the same mindset and the same way of doing things and cry over problems, because that's not effective.
Let's get real. Why do we struggle so much with problem solving, even when solutions seem obvious?
Well, sometimes it's just based on mindset or perspective that people have. Some people have more of a positive mindset. Some people have more of a negative mindset, possibly due to life's events, circumstances, or just being more of a negative, emotionally negative people. That is one of the reasons where when you basically see a glass half empty or half full kind of difference. But problems are everywhere. We cannot be problem free. We all encounter them. This is part of life. And if we didn't have problems, we wouldn't become better. We wouldn't progress, right? In our thinking, in the world, we wouldn't build things. We usually come up with the best and greatest solutions when we encounter problems in just in any field, right? Like how to treat people better in the medical field, or how to build better, right? How to be more efficient, and so on. So this is a normal part of life. And if we look at it from a perspective of it's okay, and we can find ways and find it could be your unique way, because we're not all the same and not same methods work for everyone. And some people seem to be better at solving than others and come out on top. And I wouldn't say, I personally don't believe that anyone is much better at coming up with solutions or going through tough times in life. We're all good at something. It's just how we perceive what's happening to us is very important too. What matters is your approach and perspective, right? Are you looking to learn from your experience, or are you wishing it never happened, right? When we're trying to control what's out of our control, we drive ourselves crazy. Right? So the best thing to do is to gain power by managing what's within our control. That even if the zone of your control is really small, in any situation, right? What can you control? You can control what time you go to sleep, for example, right? Or what time you get up. You can
not always.
You can get there, right? It's something, as an adult, for example, right? We're so good at controlling our children's schedules, but not our own, right? And then we're like, oh, how come I'm not feeling myself today? Well, maybe your routine is off, right? Your biological timing is not working for you, so your mind is not working, right? So there's always an answer. Sometimes we just don't want to see that. But at the same time, it can be stressful. Problems can be stressful, especially and overwhelming if there are too many and we don't know how to solve them, or we feel like we've tried everything and nothing works. And, I think in my field, we see it as there's always a subconscious mechanism that we are probably unaware of, and that's causing us to encounter the same situation, the same lessons in life, right? Where people come and go in life sometimes and they bring their own lessons. If we don't learn them, they'll keep coming over and over again until we learn them and know how to deal with that specific situation, which is also part of coming up with solutions, right? But great Einstein said doing the same thing and expecting a different result is called insanity. And we all do that. But a lot of times, to give people credit, they don't do it intentionally or consciously, right? It's happening somehow in the background, and we keep selecting the same people in life, right? And looking past the issues that they're coming with, because again, we're doing it subconsciously, not consciously.
So that's why we often, humans, don't solve problems when we see the solution and we don't do it, because that's usually subconsciously we have some blocking.
For that reason too, yes, sometimes people choose to be in denial of what's going on, or of their own faults and shortcomings, because it's more like a defensive mechanism, right? But now we're kind of diving deeper into like the psychology stuff. The reason I brought that up is I think it's important to understand that when we encounter the same problems, we can't find a proper way out, and we start blaming ourselves, and we really try to find that way, to find your own path, or how to break down, big problem to smaller problems, and we can't do that. That could be due to some subconscious mechanisms, kind of taking over the process, right? Where you actually genuinely tried, but it's not working, and then you probably are not aware of something. You're not completely understanding what's going on. You don't have all the information as to what's driving you, right? What's driving your behavior? What are you not noticing? What are your beliefs or limiting beliefs that are underneath all that, that are dictating how you choose and how you make decisions and so on. So all these important aspects of life, they have to come up on the surface, which, can take time. People have to start understanding, like, how do I make decisions? Am I doing it rationally? Am I being realistic about this or not? Right? Am I being too emotional? What's driving me here? Am I thinking negatively too much, right? Am I thinking, oh my God, this is a threat, I will never get through it. That's a threat mindset, right? Versus challenge mindset, or threat or challenge thinking. Okay, it's a challenge. Yes, I've never done this before. It may seem difficult, but what can I do to look at it from a different angle, right? To see, like, okay, what am I operating with here, right? Versus that would be a challenge thinking, versus threat, like, oh, I don't have these tools or these resources, and these people turned away from me. That's it. I'm failing. It's never going to happen, right? Versus, like, okay, yes, I'm missing some pieces, but what do I have? What can I control? That's within my control here.
So you're saying that you're gonna answer so many questions about all aspects of my life in order to make a decision or solve a specific problem in my life, right? It depends on my mindset and subconscious mind and everything. Or how do I come up to a solution to my problem?
What I'm, I guess, saying, I understand this might be too complex, right? But we are complex. There's different levels and layers, and sometimes we don't know something we're not informed enough to understand why we're not coming up with solutions, right? There's strategies of problem solving, and there's strategies to working with yourself, with your mindset, with being more kind of calculated when you're making decisions or writing down what are pros and cons, what are benefits, asking yourself certain questions. What's driving me to make this decision? What's behind this decision making?
How these options, right, that I want to use as my problem solving, I have multiple options. I solve this problem this way or this way, and then I observe and answer this question: what's driving me making this option as a problem solution?
Right, and how am I coming up with that decision? There's a methodology in psychology called solution-focused therapy, and one of the authors of that, Steve Shazer, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, co-founder, said that problem talk creates problems, solution talk creates solutions. How am I thinking about this problem? Am I freaking out? Am I stressing myself out because it's stressful, right? It's a lot to do with our worldview and what's at stake sometimes too. If it's a very important subject, right, or matter that you're dealing with, you might be in I don't know, your family's well-being depends on it. How are you making this decision here? Is it emotional because you're driven by, in that case, fear, right, or a sense of responsibility, overly like feeling responsible, and then you're going to be pressured, right? So that's what's driving someone in that case.
When I answer that question, how do I know if it's right or wrong?
So I would look at, again, the emotions, right? Am I being driven by fear? That's an emotional aspect that will not, in that case, help you come up with a rational decision.
This is not the answer.
Right.
Okay.
So yes, emotions are in our life, and it's not good or bad, right? Yes, feelings are more permanent, but emotions, yes, are temporary. And sometimes they're just hinting at how we feel about something. But if they're completely controlling our decision-making process, that's not good either. There has to be balance between reasoning and the emotions, right? And
especially helpful for women.
Yes, well, and women tend to be more on an emotional side. But men, not to say they're not, because it's just kind of expressed differently. Men may not be as impulsive in certain little things that women are, but they may be impulsive on a bigger scale in other things, right? Or not paying attention to emotions as much as the emotions deserve it too. We cannot dismiss the aspect of emotions either when we're looking at a person, or how, like children, for example, they're kind of more emotional because this is like a natural state to them, right? They want something, they're not going to be shy about it, they're going to make it known. But as we grow up and become an adult, reasoning becomes what separates us from children. And if we're not using the reasoning, we are childlike, right? Or we're acting as children, and then we're making decisions as if we're little and not adults, right? So that is another aspect if you look at it that way, right?
Okay, so if I'm motivated by emotion that's wrong, not gonna help me solve my problem, what are the other driving forces?
Well, I wouldn't say emotions are there, and it's not that they're wrong or bad.
Not going to help me effectively solve my problem.
It's just
long term.
Kind of, it's like a hint. It's a hint, like, I'm feeling this way about this situation. There could be so many reasons for it from the past. You had a similar situation, and this is how you reacted in the past. and this is what's coming up, and this is how you're interpreting the current situation. That's what's driving me. But then, we look, was it effective or was it helpful? It's not so much about right or wrong, but like you said, is it helping or is it hurting me?
What's helping?
In the past, usually, like if I do this way, am I going to meet my goals, right? So that the kind of, is my agenda being met here, right? What I'm doing when I'm making a decision that will lead to a certain action, that's when we can stop. We can think about things in many different ways. It doesn't hurt to think.
Right.
It's when it comes down to actions. How am I going to act here? And am I being impulsive or am I being reasonable here, right? Am I being conscious or am I acting automatically how I used to, which we know, like the quote, right? When we do the same thing, expect a different result. So to evaluate, right? Not to do things automatically, basically, but to evaluate your decision-making process, solutions, and your actions at the end that will lead to certain consequences. We never know, or we don't always know what's going to happen, but we can take an educated guess on what's going to happen. Again, when we're being rational and reasonable.
Like imagine what might happen if I make this certain move, right, to problem solving. So that would be second step. First step, to realize what's driving me, what it's based on, emotions and other aspects in our lives. Second one is to imagine the scenario, what might happen if I make a certain move to problem solving, right?
Or again, look at it like, how am I thinking about this? Am I being positive or negative, right? And you can kind of like look at it, okay, am I thinking about it? There's a think tank type of method people use where they...
Perspective, I would say.
Yeah, but think tank, by that I mean where you explore many different possibilities. You're not looking at impossibilities. You're looking at as if all of these decisions could lead to like a fruitful, effective, helpful solution, right? And then you will narrow down, right? It's kind of brainstorming, but in a very positive way. You will narrow down what you can actually do versus what you can't do, what's within your control versus what's out of your control, right? So, because that way we're doing it positively. A lot of times when people problem solve or think about things, they're like, well, yeah, I could do this. I could go here and meet with this person, but they're not going to help me. And there's a lot of traffic on the way, and I'm going to be late, and I'm not going to be in shape by the time I meet with another. Like, for example, you're looking for a job, right? Or interview, and you're limited. When you start thinking this way, that's it. You're limiting yourself. You're thinking negatively. This won't work. So your mind's like, okay, this won't work. Why explore how it can work if you already made a decision that this won't work, right? Or being negative about it. That hinders you.
Yeah, it's a completely different scenario compared to the one when I can say, I should try. It doesn't hurt to try. Mm-hmm. If not a big deal. I'll try another one. And it's a same scenario, but different perspective. And it changes your mindset.
Exactly, in your state. And you just kind of looking back is not bad either at what you were effective, when you were effective, when you had positive outcomes of situations, and sometimes just using the same past experience that worked in coming up with a solution, that can be helpful too. And at negative also, right? There's many cognitive biases in psychology that we explore in terms of how people think, and we all have them. There's like 100, I think. I'm familiar with around 50 of them, but obviously can't name them top of my head, but there's one survivor bias. It's called a survivor bias. And I think it came from World War II, when I think they were looking at the planes that came back, and they were kind of trying to came back from the war, and versus the ones that didn't come back, right? So they were looking at the planes that came back and trying to fix all the other planes and equip all the planes in the same way. So it must be, if this plane came back, that means, everything's right with it. And if we model another one, it will come back also. But later they realized that you better look at the ones that didn't come back as to what happened there. Why didn't they come back? What was wrong within the mechanics or otherwise engineering and all of that? And how can they improve what didn't work, right? Versus what always worked. When we look at someone successful, we're like, oh, must be nice, right? That they made it in life, and it's all great and amazing. But we don't know what they went through behind the scenes, because we don't know how many times they had to fail, right? So looking at your mistakes and learning from them is another way, right? Yes, acknowledging the mistakes. Like, I made mistakes. I don't want to repeat them, because obviously, I'm facing the same problem over and over and over again. So what can I do to fix here that I will survive later, right? So not assume that only best outcomes determine how you should proceed with making solutions, right? It's not always the case.
Oh, definitely, lessons are precious. We all know that.
So, and again, comparing yourself to other people, sometimes it's helpful in terms of like, oh, what did they do to succeed here or there? But it may not always apply to us, right? Learning from people, yes, but not like comparing and following the same exact path. So, and again, being realistic, like realistic versus unrealistic, that's another point. That's another step, right? We're talking about if we're being unrealistic, right? Completely unrealistic about what's going on, not evaluating the situations correctly, not knowing all the information, or not understanding what's limiting us here, and thinking like, oh, I'll deal with it later when it comes. Yes, but it may be a bigger obstacle than you think. How are you going to deal with it, right? And sometimes people, especially when they're pressured, they're, maybe unrealistic about what's going on. So kind of like looking at that aspect also.
I also wanted to ask you, how do we manage our emotions to think clearly and to make better decisions?
Well, that's a big topic, obviously, that we discussed.
No magical button
no magic pill
to solve all problems.
If we had those, I would be out of work, right? And it's very individual in terms of emotional regulation. That's what we work with in therapy, of course. But I would say just simple thing that I think we already talked about, just kind of like grounding yourself and thinking like taking a breath, right? Breathing out and like thinking, okay, what am I doing right now? Is it helping me, right? What am I feeling? How's this feeling determining what I'm gonna do next and what I feel like doing next? Is it, again, maybe it's right, but maybe it's not, right? Is it an insight? Is it a helpful insight, or is it going to lead me to a bigger problem, right? So just kind of like taking it slow, being patient with yourself, thinking like, have I ever encountered something like this before? Did I feel this way in other situations, and I'm doing this now just because I'm used to doing it that way.
Now I realize what has been stopping me to solving my problem is that I was focusing on the problem of negativity, of why it didn't work, why this problem has occurred. And now, while you're saying it, I realize that that's what been stopping me from solving my problems. I was focusing on the perspective, I would say, of the problem. I was focused too much on the problem.
On the problem versus problem talk creates problems, solution talk creates solutions.
It changes the entire vision of the situation. I can see, clearly the picture, and now I realize my personal problem, and it's very effective.
Great. So, and again, to go back to your question, sometimes it's just simple, but it can be really helpful of acknowledging, like, yes, I feel this way right now, and it's okay to be with that feeling or emotion, but not to get stuck in it, right? It's to move on later. Like, it's okay to be angry sometimes, and you can go to the mirror and say, I'm angry. This is not fair, or something, like, shouldn't have been this way. But it's not going to change the situation, right? And acknowledging, like, kids do that.
Let it be an emotion, not a feeling, right? Not a lifestyle mindset.
To get stuck in it. Again, correct. So, and it's okay to be angry for those 2 minutes. You can, squish, like there's a special, squishy things. You can, do something with that. You can go punch a bag. And
some people are laughing at her strategies and releasing the anger.
But,
this is what I do.
But, you can release that, because again, emotions are temporary. But if it will drive you during the process of coming up with solutions, for example, a person is encountering a problem, something wasn't fair, they feel like they were mistreated, they were treated badly, they're angry, they feel disrespected, they feel hurt, and what if in that state they come up with a strategy on how to act, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I heard a lot of crime happening based on those
and effects. That too, revenge, right? That vengeful thinking.
A lot of people regret that, because that was this feeling, the temporal feeling. They didn't realize what they were doing, and now they have to spend the rest of their lives in jail.
And, we're talking extreme cases, but yes, or saying something, hurting someone who's not at fault, maybe, right? Just being too overwhelmed by that emotion, right? Not thinking clearly. Again, when we're too emotional, we're not thinking clearly.
Right? You're gonna become your best friend. It's okay to get emotional for 2 minutes, and then talk to yourself, analyze the situation, and be your best friend. Not to make stupid decisions based on a temporal emotion.
Right. It's okay to take 10 minutes, even if you're sad or angry. Listen to music, go to the gym, punch a bag, run.
Get it released.
Yes. Emotions.
And get sober, make decisions in clear mind.
Exactly. So that's, and again, being realistic versus unrealistic, that's another threat. Versus challenge mindset is important. It's just I'm going over the steps we talked about, and then learning from the past, both positive and negative, like we talked about the survivor bias, right? And to kind of like move along, right? We talked about, good things we can do, like effective things we could do, good questions to ask yourself is
my favorite part. Your questions are very powerful. Give us some examples.
Well, just, I'm just gonna go over the things. Again, what's driving me right now, right? Is there a secondary gain? Sometimes people are acting out of even safety, out of instinctual forces. They're like, on some level, they don't feel safe, and they're gonna choose a certain decision or do certain thing because they feel safer that way. And sometimes they deprive themselves from being more successful or choosing something that would lead them to a better outcome because this is the safer way, right? That way I'm sitting here, I'm not being noticed, nobody can reject me, right? Or, I can't fail because I'm playing it safe or I'm within my comfort zone.
Is it a good or a bad thing?
You can stay in your comfort zone, but as we know, we don't learn, we don't proceed, we don't evolve when we're staying in our comfort zone for too much. Again, it's what do I need here? What's important to me? What's my agenda at the end of the day? That's a good question to ask.
What if I want something completely different and stay in my comfort zone? Where do I find that middle solution? Magical button.
No. Okay, again, notice the state you're in, your mood. It's not a good idea to make important life-changing decisions, especially, or even like sometimes small decisions, like don't go to the store hungry, right? It's simple. We know that, it's a vulnerability, because if you're vulnerable, you will act on trying to protect yourself or compensate, right? When you bring a hungry child to a store or a 2-year-old and they throw a temper tantrum, whose fault it is? Not the 2-year-olds, right? It's the adults, because, it's a hungry child. They cannot control themselves. They really can't. And they're vulnerable at the moment, right? By being hungry. So either give them, piece of bread or snack or something so that they stop the tantrum, right? Because then you cannot proceed with what you were going to do, grocery shop, right? And again, it applies to all of us, adults, children. That's just, how we operate. Same with adults, right? Vulnerable. If you're in a vulnerable position, you know that this is your kind of like weakness at the moment, right? Not to say weaknesses are bad, but like you're something sensitive, something that will trigger you. Maybe it's not a good time, right? Or maybe you need to comfort yourself before you're making that.
Just as they say, to sleep it through. Because the clear mind will come in the morning. Don't make a decision at night, right?
Sometimes.
Based on emotions.
Exactly. You can look at, do I have any fears or any obstacles that are not as realistic as they seem in my mind, right? Like sometimes we're afraid of something, but it's really not as scary as it is in my mind, is in our mind, right? It's if we put it on paper, we're like, okay, so this is not as bad, right? I can deal with that. I will find a way to deal with that, or I can, ask so and so, right?
It's not the end of the world.
But when it's just kind of lingering in there and it's a fear and an obstacle may not be as threatening as it seems when it's on just a thought level. Bringing it into the light, right? And seeing what you can do. Again, is my thought process rational or emotional? Where is it coming from? And is my perspective based on reality, or am I being unrealistic?
Oh, that's a tough question. For some people like me.
Well, in that case, right, and me and you we talked about that, and I think the best way to deal with, like, if you have a bigger picture and you have a big vision, you're a visionary, right? You have a big vision, that's great, actually. Some people struggle with dreaming, believe it or not, because their ability to dream was cut off at childhood when they were told, no, you can't have this. No, you will never amount to anything. No, I will never get this for you. You don't deserve it, right? And that's very sad, but unfortunately, that turns off, and we all can. And especially if people grow up in unfortunate circumstances or very like lots of poverty and so on, it may affect even their ability to dream. Not for everybody, sometimes people thrive later in life. But so the best way to deal with that, if you're like, okay, I think I went too far, like I can't have this tomorrow, it's really like unrealistic. How can I break it down into smaller steps, right? If you say, let's say an engineer comes to a building site and there's like empty space and they have blueprints in their hands that the architect put together. They look at empty lot, look at the blueprints, and they're like, okay, there's no way. They close it and they leave. Yeah, you can't build something in a day. It has to be broken into steps. What's realistic for the next 6 months, right? For the next year. What can I at least aim towards? There's no guarantee you're gonna get there, or maybe you're gonna get even further than you thought you would, but at least you have an idea, right? A timeline. It's dream and goals and the plan, right? So basically 3 things. That's how you can break down big problem into smaller steps as a strategy too. And what can I do in a year about this, for example? What can I do in the next 3 months, and what can I do next week or tomorrow, right? Don't think about it as a whole. It's very ineffective, overwhelming, and the person, people get demotivated. They're like, okay, there's no way I can solve this. How? Well, yeah, of course, if you think about it like that, you need 100 people, but if you kind of stretch it and break it into smaller, manageable steps, you can do it.
Thanks for watching us. If you're enjoying this episode, please click the like and subscribe button and leave a comment below to support our channel. Your single click would make a tremendous difference to us, as this is one of the first videos we published after rebranding and reconnecting with you. Subscribe to my channel and join my journey.
If you have good ideas, good insights, best way is to write it down. How to change the usual way of coming up with solutions, right, is to, again, always positively word the end result. Try to do that. Again, if you're driven by emotions, they're like, nothing's gonna work, this is awful, this is terrible, it's the end of the world. Well, no, don't do it in that mood. Not gonna work, for sure. Don't even try. So it has to be positive, towards something, to better this aspect of life, or to, work in my health, but not get rid of this weight or this problem with, my hip because I sit in a certain way all the time, right? Not to get rid, but move towards a healthier posture, weight, comfortable, fit, flexible body, right? Would be what you should envision.
Which is, again, like the perspective, right? Because I personally, now I think of my personal problems in the past. When I was a teenager, like similar, the problems seemed to be the end of the world. And now when I look at that, and I can just laugh at it. So
Yes.
The perspective of the problem is very, like a key point in analyzing your situation.
And I work with teenagers, and this is so great that you're bringing this up, because this is what I tell my teenage patients, clients, like, girls, in 10 years, you will not care. You'll be laughing at the fact that you were so worried about this, the way your hair looked today, or what this girl or boy said, and what about your outfit. You're probably gonna be like, did I wear this really? And again, it's all, we take things out of proportion a lot. Like you said, especially teenagers, hormones, emotions, all of that mixed. What are you being driven by, right?
So I do find this little method very effective when you release all of your emotions when it comes to a specific problem, and then you just, with a sober mind, just try to take a look at this problem with a different perspective. Just force yourself and just take a look at the different perspective.
Yes.
And then you will just see this problem different. It's just the same. I was reading the Bible and I was a little bit upset when they said, pray to God about some problem and He will give you peace. And I was like, I want to solve this problem. I don't want peace. But when I prayed, and then I just saw that the problem still remains there, but it's not a problem for me anymore.
Okay.
I found peace, and that's what I'm saying. I just changed the perspective of the problem. The problem is still there, but it's not a problem for me anymore.
The way
oh
you...
my God,
Yes.
it's just life-changing. It's about everything, in therapy, in religion, in anything.
Definitely. And I think it's great. It's the matter of interpretation, right? You saw that, and there's so much wisdom in that, right? It's the Bible, but there's so much wisdom, like from the psychological perspective as I see it, because it's basically telling you to let go, like give it to a higher power to solve, and then you stopped caring about it as much, right? You basically like, okay, this is in the hands of God now. And it didn't matter to you as much anymore because everything is relative, right? And how you relate to this problem changed in that moment when you prayed. So letting go, there's a difference between your brain and your mind. Your brain is more of like, it's an organ. It's like anything else. It's like liver or lungs, right? It has a function. Of course, it has an executive function. It's really, really smart. And it can override even what you want. And it does that on a daily basis. There's a lot of unconscious processes happening in the brain all the time. We don't even think about it, right? We don't think, oh, I should remember to breathe, right? Or I should remember to digest my food, or I should walk to that couch, and make sure I'm not gonna stumble on this table. You don't think about it, it's all unconscious, right? That's the brain's part. But there's the mind. The mind is more of you, like as a person. What do you want? And a lot of times the brain takes over because we don't direct it to do certain things how we want it. Without direction, the brain will just do whatever it wants, right? And again, the subconscious processes will dictate or drive what we're doing.
I thought of it that way.
So, again,
I can control my prey.
You can, yes, and you should. Again, some things we can't control, and some instinctual things will override any wish you have because we're just wired that way for survival. And that's normal, that's okay. But again, we're evolved human beings, so now we're not wild anymore. Other things we can control, right? And we should be civilized in that matter. But with that comes responsibility, right? So you're not leaving up to the brain to make decisions on something. You're consciously telling it like, okay, I'm in charge. I want to live my life this way. Because the interesting thing and kind of sad sometimes is that the brain doesn't care about how we feel. All it wants is for us to be safe, and there's so many defense mechanisms that are not helpful. It's a protector, but it's working against us sometimes because it doesn't really care how we feel as long as we're here, and it thinks that it's completing all the tasks properly and keeps us going, right? So in making decisions or coming up with solutions or solving problems, it's an important piece to realize too. I'm in charge. I want things this way. I have reasons for it. I don't want it to be the same way it always was when my brain was like, okay, bye, you can sit here and I'm in charge and I'm just gonna turn you off like that, right? It still does that a lot, but you can take control. And when you feel like you're in control of these decisions, you feel empowered. You feel like, okay, I'm capable. It didn't just happen. I made this happen. I did something. And the good thing is also, when you tell your brain what to do, it will do it. It's has an executive function. It will execute your orders if you make clear and persistent orders. Have you ever felt stuck in a cycle of repetitive choices and dead-end outcomes? Introducing Navigator, a transformative psychological game designed by experts in psychology and coaching. With almost a decade of success stories, Navigator helps uncover subconscious decision-making processes, shining a light on what's guiding your choices. By mirroring your thought process, this game can reveal underlying feelings and behavioral strategies, leading to breakthroughs and greater self-understanding. With the brain, again, I wish for everyone, for all the audience, the listeners, for you, Kristina, to take charge, to actually feel empowered, that you're capable of much more than you realize. If you remove the obstacles, if you remove all this unwanted material that's kind of like this kind of garbage in our mind, it's distracting us constantly, things that are irrelevant, like, you prayed and you realize, okay, my problem is not even a big deal. Sometimes they are, right? So we should not leave them. They're not going to solve themselves, but put ourselves in the right state of mind with the right positive wording, right positive mindset, and learn from mistakes, and then take control, take charge of how you operate. That's the most you can do for yourself. Also, a helpful way to ask yourself questions that will lead you to kind of an idea of what you should be doing, right? Sometimes in any situation it's called Descartes square, and it's kind of like a methodology too. What will happen if I do this? One. What will happen if I don't do this? Two. What won't happen if I do this? That's three. And what won't happen if I don't do this? And it may sound repetitive, but it's really powerful if you write it down and actually envision all the answers. This can help you come up with an answer that's right for you.
Wow, I just solved all problems in your life, literally.
Oh, that would be great.
This is really effective. I literally solved so many questions while you were saying it.
Nice. That's
Thank
great.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Maria.
You're welcome.
I'm so excited to talk about many other subjects. And if you have any specific requests, send us your questions in the messages, in the comments below. And we'll see if we can discuss it with our expert, Maria Shenkman.
Yes, thank you. Topics, yeah, guys, please, welcome to suggest. We can maybe, if we have enough, you can vote. We can maybe put out certain topics and get a vote on it and see what else we can do.